All right, I'm gonna select this kind of blue and then get a nice little kind of bluish purple, and I'm gonna color drop that onto our first layer. So now we have a nice blue first layer. Then I'm gonna add a layer. Actually, for this one, I'm just gonna draw right on this layer. I'm going to select my one of my airbrush brushes, and I'll select our soft brush, which is the first brush here. And I'm gonna make that brush pretty big, maybe about 26%. And if you want to ever save the size of a brush, you can double click on that slider and you can just select add. So you can always slide it to like 25% or whatever that is on this brush. And I'm gonna have my opacity at like 79 or 80%. Then I'm just gonna select a little bit more of a purple color to start to draw in the background here. And we're gonna create kind of an ombre. I'm gonna move up to those pinky colors. And then I'm gonna go up even lighter to those kind of bright fuchsia-y orangish colors. I want to stay in this bright area where there's not too much white added. Get that nice, I want it a little redder. So take your time selecting the colors that work for you. I want it to be really glowy. And then once you have this kind of fade, I'm actually gonna go back and add a little bit of purple to that background area. And then more bright pink. And even more. So I really have a kind of glow effect. It's not an ombre yet because you can kind of see the lines, but we're gonna start to blur it by going into our adjustments, and we're gonna select Gaussian blur. So I'll select that, and then anytime you select one of these adjustments, you always have a slider. So Gaussian blur, and then you'll see at the top it says 0%. I'm just gonna slide to the right to start to blur those edges a little bit more. It looks like about 53%. I like how that looks, so I'll save that. All right, so this will be our background. Now we're gonna create another layer, and we're gonna get our first color, mountain. So let's just have one that's a little bit more towards the blue region, but kind of a fuchsia color. And then I'm going to go into my calligraphy brushes, and I will select monoline. So monoline is a nice, just simple straight line. I'm gonna adjust the size, so it's about 5%. Make sure my opacity is up to 100%. And then I'm gonna double check that I'm on my second layer. And I'm just gonna start by making sure I start all the way at one edge. And I'm gonna make a wiggly line all the way across. Just wiggle your hands, think about mountains. And then I'm gonna color drop that bright color into that bottom section. I'm gonna next create a layer above, so it should be on our third layer. And I'm gonna move down to kind of a more purplish color, but you wanna keep it pretty close in this range. I'm gonna go right below. Actually, that's a little bit too dark, so I'll go back up to my fuchsias. A little bit below here. Make my wiggle line across. Thinking about mountains, and I'll make sure that that line goes all the way off the canvas on one side and all the way off on the other. And then I'm gonna color drop back into there. I'm gonna move down into maybe a little bit darker of a purple, just so it's a slightly different color. And then I'm going to make sure I go to my my fourth layer, and I'll start off the canvas. Let's make some of these mountains go up above. They look natural. And then color drop into that next layer. All right, now from here I'm going to create a new layer. And with that layer, actually, before we move on to the next one, let's do our mountains first. So I'm gonna start going back into layer 2, which is our first mountain range. And I'm gonna select that layer, and I'm also going to select Alpha Lock. So Alpha Lock, if you don't remember, allows me only to draw on the layer selected, not on any other layers. So it's good when you're trying to add just some details or textures to a layer. And I'm gonna go into, let's see, our airbrush again. And I'll get that soft brush like we had in the beginning. Get it up to a good size, maybe a little less than it was before. And I'm gonna select that warm, kind of bright pinky color that was in the back of the sky. So that's more towards the red area. And then I'm just gonna get a little dusting of kind of foggy brightness at the bottom part of those mountains. If it's too much, you can try it again and just get right above the first mountain range into the second one. And remember, the harder you press, the more it will show up. But if you press lightly or apply less pressure, then it will be more translucent. Then I'm gonna go into my next layer. I'm gonna select it and Alpha Lock it so that I'm only drawing on that layer. And I'm gonna add a little bit more fog here as well to the next mountain range. Go down to the next layer, select it, Alpha Lock it, and give a little bit of brightness to that bottom layer here. Next layer, select it, Alpha Lock it, give some of that foggy fade. Go into the next layer, layer number 6, select it and Alpha Lock it. Give a little bit of last bits of fog so we have those mountains kind of glowing in the sunset. Okay, now we're gonna go back up. We're gonna leave that last layer alone and we're gonna go back up to our 8th layer, and we're gonna select a color for our moon. So let's go into our blues and kind of select a nice close to white but light blue. And I'm gonna go back into my monoline. So that's in our calligraphy set, monoline. And I'm just gonna make a little circle. So remember, it's not gonna be perfect at first, but if you hold it in place, then it'll give you that perfect shape feature. And if you touch the screen, it will make it into a perfect circle. So it depends how big you want your moon, but about that size is nice. Then we can color drop into that moon shape. And let's give the moon a little bit of a glow. So the way that we do that is we're gonna go into the 8th layer where our moon is. We're going to select that layer and we're going to copy that layer. Actually, I'm sorry, we're going to select that layer and we're going to duplicate it. I'm not seeing duplicate. it is, sorry. Okay, we swipe to the left, and then these options come up: delete, duplicate, or lock. We're gonna duplicate it. So now we have 2 of those moon layers. There we go. I'm gonna go to the layer below, so the circle that's underneath that new layer, and then we're gonna go into our adjustments. So from our adjustments, we're going to select bloom, and bloom will give us a really nice glow. And again, we have that slider at the top, so we're gonna slide over to the right and give it as much bloom or glow as we want. These sliders at the bottom will appear as well, so you want to make sure your size is where you want it, so you can make the glow wider and bigger. You can also make your burn a little bit stronger so it really glows, like how that looks. And then I'm going to click out of that. I'm going to go back into my top moon layer, and I'm going to give this moon layer some texture. So I'll select the layer. I will again alpha lock it, so I'm only drawing on that layer. And then I'm going to go into, if you all did the other tutorials, then you remember our industrial brush set and our rusted decay. So let's get our rusted decay brush, get it a good size. It's a little smaller than the moon, but still gives a good texture. Keep our opacity kind of low. And then I'm gonna select kind of a darker grayish blue. So this is what the color I'll use to give the texture. And then I'm just gonna gently build up some texture on the moon until it's where you like it. Applying more to one side and making it look a little bit more three-dimensional. And then it's time for our stars. So let's make yet another layer. We'll select that blue, white, and then we're gonna go into our brush library, and we'll select our luminance brush set, and we'll select our glimmer. So if you don't have the glimmer looking like this, which it should be set to by now, you want to make sure that your spacing is how you like it. So this is in the brush library. You selected your glimmer brush, and you want to make sure that these stars are looking how you like them. So you can do that by adjusting the spacing and the jitter. And then I'm gonna make it kind of small because I only want stars like up in the sky here. A little too small. Remember, you can always 2-finger tap. You want more towards the top of the page because that's where there's less light in this moonscape. Some sprinkling of stars lower. And if you get any stars on your moon that you don't like, you can always erase. Okay, once you have your stars looking how you like them, then you can go back into your luminance brush set, and you're gonna select light pen. We're gonna give ourselves a couple of shooting stars. So we'll make a couple of dots, and then we're going to use our blur tool for this to make sure that it's swiped, and we're going to make sure that to make sure that it looks like a shooting star, we're going to use our blur tool to make it look like it was moving. And to do that, we want to select our blur tool and make sure that we have light brush selected so that we're using the same brush that we used to draw it. And then I'm just going to go into that, try it a couple times, go into that little circle and give it a swish, blur it back a bit so it looks like a shooting star. And there you have it.